You're listening to the Fitness Rants podcast, the show where unfiltered conversations meet real-world health and fitness.
We cut through the noise and deep dive into the truth behind health, nutrition, physique development, and the fitness industry itself.
We're your hosts, Ross Gilmore and Malin Blumdale, experienced coaches and educators who have been part of the fitness industry for over 15 years.
If you're a coach, high performer, or someone just tired of mainstream nonsense, you're in the right place.
Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another guest episode of the Fitness Rants podcast. Today I am joined by the boss man himself, Mr. Calum Raistrick. Cal, thanks for taking the time to come on today.
Mate, my pleasure. You got my name right as well. So after all this time, I would expect you have got it right. But
after 7 years at least, because I've been working with you now since I think it's actually been 2018, circa 2018.
Yeah.
I must be one of the longest standing clients.
One of the longest for sure, yeah.
Who's ahead of me? That's what I want to know.
I think that it's still active. I don't know. I've had a couple of competitors that were like intermittent, but they don't work like year round. They might start a prep and then stop again. So you might be the active current longest standing client.
I think I'm going to have to get you to go and find out that information.
I will,
because I'm going to claim it if I can. So I think we've also got to give you some congratulations as well, due to you and Hannah. So obviously,
thank you very much.
How old is Ronnie now?
So he will be 10 weeks old on Friday. So I'm here on thin ice. And I've got to fly home tomorrow.
I have no idea how she's even let you leave the UK.
So the rule is, if I drive her to her parents, I can leave the country, but she can't be at home on her own.
No.
Because she's got extra hands of help there. And it's like a little mini holiday because her mum can help. And, it's a lot easier when you've got help in hands. So when I went to Ibiza, because I was away last weekend as well.
Right.
I'm away next weekend too in Portugal. I haven't told her that yet. So when does this podcast go out?
It may be a couple of weeks. So
okay,
you might be all right.
It's already been done.
Excellent. But yeah, congrats again. That's
Thank you very much, mate.
Such a massive life moment, transition as well. And we're going to get into this a little bit now as well, though. But people know your background, they know how much you work. It's adding another thing like that to the mix is
100%.
Honestly, I don't know how you're still breathing, to be honest. If it's not Hannah that kills you, it's going to be the job at some point. So listen, I want to get right into it. Let's just get straight into it, because the name of the podcast is Fitness Rants. And so we are going to talk about things within, I think, of course, anyone who knows your background will know that the physique space is where you are, especially bodybuilding. And I'm sure you have plenty to say about coaching within that space. Before we get into that, though, I don't want to just do a typical intro, tell us your life history, the story of your life, Cal Raistrick, because let's be honest, you've been on, God, I don't know how many podcasts at this stage, so you've been through this so many times, and rather than having the same, all right, let's just
start from scratch,
run it back and then let's go up. I think what would be a good way, or an interesting way to approach it, would be almost go through your career milestones and what were the main challenges that you overcame at each of those different milestones, and then what have you had to do in terms of professional and personal growth to sort of get past each of those milestones and move on to that next stage?
I think probably the more unique story from both of our sides is we've come from very, what I'd say is like, when I public speak, I say like conventional backgrounds as coaches. It's like gym floor based for a long time. And I think that is probably becoming more of a rarity now in the industry we're in, with the prevalence of online and like fast track from, you probably got zero experience and a lot of the time zero knowledge in the first place, and then suddenly you're looking for 10 motivated men to go through a transformation. 10 motivated men to go through a transformation. It's we've come from a background of the way you got clients was walking the gym floor, conversations, building rapport, maybe weeks and weeks and weeks of working on that nurturing, and then they'll come for a taster session, then they'll sign up for a block of XPT sessions.
I was actually talking to Mike about this on the last podcast, that it's just so foreign for coaches now. They're in the gym with all these active people around them, and they're on their phone on Instagram. It's 100%. Like, what's going on? But anyway,
So that was the first 5 years. I think the landmarks for me realistically were, and I think if we started in 2018, I would have still been PTing at some point then, because I think I stopped PTing at the end of 2018/2019 before the Muscle Mentors.
So this was still at M10.
Still at M10, So the kind of biggest landmarks for me were the first virtually 2 years of my career were commercial gym based. LA Fitness to start, and then an independent gym in Tunbridge Wells called what's now called Halo Gym. And I built what was to me back then a full client base, probably 35, 40 hours a week consistently, where it's like you'd have PT clients that come in and do 3 sessions a week. You might have 12 to 15 full-time clients, but they all did multiple sessions. And that was like my diary, virtually full-ish from what I perceived as full back then. And we were like, that was when I just started seeing hands. So we were like, right, we're going to, I had a little flat in Tunbridge Wells above a kebab shop. So it stank of chicken the whole time in my flat.
Nice.
So that was my start.
That's a good mood setter, that.
Yeah. But we were like, right, we're gonna rent. We're gonna move in together for the first time. We're gonna rent somewhere, and this is it. But I was doing more learning at that point, so I'd be traveling to London to do courses, or I went out to M10 a couple of times and did the original physique camps that they did, James and Mark. And a job came up at M10. And a physique coaching job, because one of the lads, I think DJ left to go back to London or somewhere, and a job came up then. And I remember speaking to my mum and dad, and they're like, "You shouldn't do it. Like, you should stay in Tunbridge Wells because you've got like everything set up now. You can like just focus, get your head down, and crack on." And Hannah was like, "No, you should do it." So I went up for the interview, which was like a workout with James, who just battered me for like 2 hours, and then an interview in person where I had to go through 3 case studies. But I remember going in, and I was like on my ass from this workout. Got dressed up nice and smart, and then I went into the office, and I was like, they made me prepare 3 case studies, and I sat in front of both of them, and they're like, "Oh no, you didn't need to do that." I spent like 4 weeks preparing all this stuff. Didn't need to do that.
So what did they make you do instead?
You got the job.
Oh, they gave it to you?
Yeah, they gave it to me already. So that was basically like what seemed stable. You could do that for a while, but I just basically cut ties and said, look, the gym I'm in right now and the niche of the client and the type of client coming in, what I want to do long term, I'm never going to get from that environment. So it's like I either keep on doing this and keep talking to the same people and keep on having the same conversations. And I can be the expert in that gym. I can be the go-to guy, but that's never really going to get me to where I'd want to potentially be in future. And the person I looked at back then was James at M10, who coached me at that time. I want to coach the people that he's coaching. I want to have the knowledge that he has. I want to, be the kind of educator that he is and have that experience. So I just, on a Friday afternoon, I was like, "Hi guys, I'm leaving Tunbridge Wells. I'm going to refer you to another coach in the gym," and I'm gone. So literally from 40 hours of PT to 0 in. And
what was the turnaround time between telling your clients and then actually stopping?
For the following week.
So you literally, it was like Friday.
It's literally Friday I stopped.
And then you were at M10 Monday.
We moved to Nottingham on Monday.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's quick.
Rapid. Yeah. But it was almost better that way because I didn't really have time to think. I was like, just do it. So I accepted the job on Friday, told my clients, cancelled my lease for my flat. We went to Nottingham on Saturday, found a new apartment, spent basically the rest of the money I had in my bank account to get a 6-month deposit on this place, and then started work on Monday. And I remember going to Nottingham and I had like 900 quid in my bank account because I just spent my entire money on this flat.
That's a way to put some pressure on yourself.
So I was like, this has got to work either way. Otherwise, I'm moving back home with my mum.
Otherwise, you're homeless.
Exactly.
Imagine that. The homeless PT on Instagram.
that's probably a niche. And Hannah was with me as well. And she was like 9. I think she might have been 19. This was like 11 years ago. She might have been 19 when we first started seeing each other. So she was leaving home. I was like the breadwinner, although I technically didn't have any clients at that point. So I was like, you've got to make it work. So that's when I'd got a glimpse of working hard at the first 2 years, but that then took it to another level. But I think also in that situation, it's probably a lesson because when you're backed into a corner and there's like, you've got to either make it work or it fails, it's actually a good position to be in because you then start to normalize a lot of the stuff that you would have perceived as difficult before. This is the only way of doing it, so I'm just going to do it.
It's almost like just no room for complacency. There's no room for...
And you're also around, like I remember being in the same gym as like people like James and Dan Smith back then, like they'd been coaching at that level for a long period of time. It was the exact environment I needed to just go in and absorb everything, to take motivation from it, to get inspired from it, to get better quality caliber of client coming through the door. And not that's not to say that it wasn't good before, but it was more so it was all physique orientated, whereas before it could have been any walk of life. Yeah. And a lot of the long-term clients I had, because I coached them for 2 years, they'd gone through their transformations then, and it was just three PT sessions a week just as part of their lifestyle. So you're not really going to generate any more new social proof from that in the first place, right? Because like PT is very different to online. And online was not really a thing back then. And then, M10 started, and it was like, right, you're in at the deep end. And that kind of was the catalyst to everything that happened.
Tell you what, it says a lot about, even for you recognise back then, as I'm sure you've continued to recognise through your career as well, the importance of environment, everything, and the people you surround yourself with
100%,
as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Very cool. So then from M10, what was the next point?
M10 I did 4 years. And that was like coaching. I started educating really quickly on that when I was there as well. Probably one of the only lads that got thrown into the deep end quick when I was first there, because I think I had done a little bit before, but I also loved doing it and wanted to put myself out there. So I was like, look, whatever you want me to do, I'll come for free, and if I can talk on X, then I'll talk. And I think doing that over the first 3 or 4 months, Mark probably thought, this guy can probably be of value teaching as well. So the physique camp started nurturing then, and that was like my first exposure of just meeting loads of new coaches, networking, building relationships with that kind of coaching community. And I think probably for those 4 years, it came the coach's coach type thing, where a lot of my clients were just people that were coming to learn, right? And then they wanted to go through the process themselves, and a lot of them came through for online coaching then, and maybe like the odd in-person session, but most of it was online. And that was 4 years. So that was like my learn your craft, in and out, apply it, get results, take the stuff that works, learn from the stuff that doesn't, do that for 4 years, you get pretty good at it. And then that was the start of I remember Luke Hoffman the weird thing is, Luke replaced me at the gym that I left in Tunbridge Wells as a PT. And I didn't know who he was. I had no idea of who he was. And then he came up to a physique camp at M10 and like introduced himself, and he was like, because he was huge back then as well, when he used to like train a lot. And I was like, this guy knows what he's doing, surely. And he's like, my name's Luke, I live in Tunbridge Wells, and I work at the gym you used to work at. And I was like, fucking hell, okay, that's crazy. And then that was the start of mine and his relationship, and the start of the Muscle Mentors. What started as a podcast, which we all knew back then it was going to be a business. So I remember Mark, when we launched the podcast, my 4th year at M10, Mark took me in his office one morning and was like, this podcast is not anything more than a podcast, is it? And I was like, no, definitely not. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I should probably tell him soon. And then I think the next week I was like, look, I'm thinking about going fully online. And he knew back then, because it was at a point where, and this is another good topic of conversation, balancing two things. And you've been in the same position before, and you still are now, where it's like the longer you do it, the more you've got to look at where you want to spend your time, and what you enjoy, what you get value from, what you feel as though you can be your best self from. But mine was, the more the online grew, the less I could effectively manage the in-person stuff, and the numbers were going down. But also, this is actually a post I'm going to do today. Later on, I'll tag you in it. The cost of saying yes as a coach, where it's like you constantly say yes. It's great for a finite period of time, but then it comes with a price as well. And me, in those probably 3 or 4 years, when it started to see more success, and that was the time when I left M10, because I knew that I couldn't give the standard I wanted to coach at. When there's so much else going on outside of the gym floor hours, I couldn't coach at the level I wanted to coach at, because my mind was so preoccupied and everything else going on outside of it, that I just stopped that. And then that's when we fully went, right, we're going to just launch into that online space and build that business from there.
And it was a bit of a juggernaut, wasn't it? Because the Muscle Mentors, I'm not going to say overnight, but like,
it was quick.
Pretty quick. It really accelerated, because let's be honest, there was physique teams in terms of maybe the bodybuilding space, but just physique coaching for coaches and more advanced trainees, there wasn't really much
not at that level what we were teaching. And also like the coaches who wanted to then specialize in that type of niche, we were like putting it on a plate, where it's like, this is what we've learned to do this, so you can learn it as well.
Do you think there was an element of timing that just was ideal
perfect,
as well?
It was perfect. But I also think there's probably a lesson in that, in terms of the community we built from the podcast, because we had the podcast for maybe 4 or 5 months before we actually launched, we're going to start coaching and educating and charge for it. I think the community we built for the podcast, that was like a big catalyst towards what we were able to do in that first year within the business, because we had a lot of people actively consuming the content and seeking the content because it was of high value. And obviously you knew Luke, he was an absolute genius. For what we taught in that first year, I think the stuff that was just put out there and free was almost the stuff that got people interested in actually paying for it in the first place as well, because you kind of you had that level of trust and rapport with people just from them consuming the content for that length of time first. So I think that helped a lot at the start. I think if we'd have launched it like, we're not going to do a podcast and we're charging X amount for a course, or we're charging X amount for a weekend, it wouldn't have had the same impact. And you see Hormozy and all these people talking about the power of community. Well, I guess our trial run of that was the Master Mentors 5-6 years ago, and that everything that people build now, we probably saw that 6 years ago in live time.
I suppose in business terms, you would call you guys like early adopters. You were early adopters of the idea of utilizing social media, or in this case, long form content, the podcast, to build that community first, with expecting nothing in return. And I think it's almost the Gary Vaynerchuk jab, 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 right hook thing, right? Where it's just you give, and you make sure you give good stuff as well. Pretty much as close to what you would do as coaching people, but without actually. Do you think a lot of coaches now are getting maybe a bit too entitled and don't want to give away their value for free?
100%. And we probably fell into that bracket. 2022 and 2023, when I started coaching a lot of prep clients, I didn't do as much education because it was all consuming on people going on stage, and didn't do as many podcasts, didn't do as much content, or I didn't do as much content as I do now. And it was more so like, right, if you want my time, I'm gonna charge you for it, because time is such a scarcity at the moment. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna have to be really specific with how I spend it. But when we launched the education, particularly for the ICM and what will come through Pro Coach soon, just the power of putting your best stuff out there, because like you feel as though you've got to like hold your cards to your chest and like, all right, I don't want to give them too much. I don't want to give them too much IP. I don't want to give them the full seminar. I don't want to give them the full content breakdown. But the irony is, like, if you can buy people in with your best stuff, they're going to come back anyway, because what the value they're taking from what you've done so far, because you're always going to make new organic content over time. And there'll be returning customers because of the value and the impact you've had from the first piece they've consumed, or the video or the podcast. So I think that 100%, like, you might get told by certain people from a business standpoint, give them a little bit, give them a glimpse, and then they're going to have to get a paywall to get the other stuff. Yeah. But I think in actuality, I think if you can build that trust from giving them your best stuff and letting them see the value, is someone that's bought in already.
Yep.
So even if you charge for the same stuff but more access to you, they're going to do it because they see the value that they've had from the...
People buy people at the end of the 100%. Day, and it's not just then the knowledge, it's then the application of that knowledge, and being held accountable to the application of that knowledge. Yeah. I think that's almost the gap or the cognitive dissonance that a lot of people 100%. Have, is that it's like, okay, well, if I've got this, then why do I need you? It's like, well, it's one thing knowing it, it's another thing breaking down all the potential limiting beliefs and all the stuff that's going on in your head to then actually do it properly. Yeah. And, okay, we have this in theory, but then sometimes what's ideal in theory doesn't always work out in practice either. And that's where the experience of someone who's hands-on stuff had hundreds of bodies on the gym floor, online, through contest preps, etc. Yeah. I want to go back a little bit, because we sort of almost jumped a little bit from
I jumped a
start of Muscle Mentors through to Pro Coach. Yeah. Just to sort of go through that timeline, how long did you guys operate the Muscle Mentors, and what was the sort of growth of that? And then what was it that led to the genesis of, right, well, let's now move into Pro Coach, and some of the guys, of course, moved on to their own stuff as well.
The Muscle Mentors, I think, podcast was 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 was Pro Coach. So pretty much 5 years.
Right.
Actively like coaching and educating within that, probably 4.5 years, I think. And that's when we like brought Jimbo on board. We had Ross, we had Ryan, we had Alex, we had Paul that came in as one of the last ones. And that's, I think the Muscle Mentors through that period of time was a coaching brand that did education very well, but we also, and this is something that we try and do now, where it's like, look guys, we're going to teach you these things, but we're also still doing it and getting results from what we're teaching you. And if it were me, like when I first started PTing and when I first started coaching, I would seek out the people that could teach me it, but I want to see it in practice working in the first place as well.
You want to see proof of concept.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the amount, and you'll be the same, the amount of stuff you've learned and paid for, where you'll go away and you'll be on your way home, or you're on a flight home, or you're driving home, and you're like, I'm not 100% sure what I actually apply of any of that to my client base. Like, I've done that so many times. And the whole point of the Muscle Mentors was like, look, this is the stuff that's going to be highly relevant, that you're going to have to draw upon all the time with your client base. This is what you need to know. If you want to learn more, it's there as well, but this is what you need to know to get results. And that's your foundation built. We can build that for you in 12 months. That would take you 10 years if you're doing it yourself. And that's essentially what the ICM is now. But I think the Muscle Mentors came to a point where it was like coaching and academics was starting to move in two different ways.
It was like diverging naturally.
Like when Paul started speaking about the gravitational forces if you did a leg press on the moon, that was the point where I was like, I'm not so sure how much of this is relevant to bodybuilders anymore. Because like they're just the smartest guys I've ever met. But it's like at some point, none of this is applicable. It's exploration on a really deep level to mechanics, which is great. But I'm never going to have to teach that to my client. I'm never going to use that in practice, right? It's something we had a conversation about the other day. Applicability and what's most value, what's the low-hanging fruit, and go for those things first.
Leg pressing on the moon isn't going to get someone to Olympia, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's a good conversation, but so that's when we kind of went, like I was really heavily focused on coaching, and that was probably the time where more of them were, I competed in 2019 myself, more of the time where more of the clients were competitors instead of just coaches. So it kind of, I guess, went from the coach's coach to I coach competitors now, to some of those competitors have won, to then just more competitors. And now it's like virtually, the irony is most of them are coaches as well, but we coach athletes on stage first and foremost. And that was, the split was like, look guys, you're exceptional at educating, the best around, but the more we go down that avenue, the less I'm able to talk to the people I want to talk to, who I want to coach, and that's where pro coach.
So it's just the lines when it comes to that cohesive communication of the brand 100%. Just started to blur too much.
Yeah, and it was like if I was doubling down on that side, it wasn't necessarily valuing the stuff that we wanted to explore and teach on that side, and vice versa. So that's where the kind of parting of ways came, and then pro coach was just like the creation of that, where it was like my vision long term of where I wanted the coaching to go.
Right back in Tunbridge Wells, obviously.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, at the time you saw what James and Mark and the guys and Dan were doing at M10, and you saw that as aspirational, but was the coaching bodybuilders and physique sports, was that back then? It was a massive personal interest, but I don't think I didn't have the vision of like, all right, I'm going to have these people working under the brand and I'm going to be coaching those individuals. That just evolved over time. So it's almost like in order to have that vision, you had to move up to this point.
Other things first, yeah.
And then that allowed you to, because you can't see this before you've saw this first, right? So
I remember when I spoke to you earlier about, I did a podcast with Mark a couple of years ago somewhere in Dubai, and he's big on 1 year goal, 3 year goal, 5 year goal. And like, I know a lot of people that set those like, and have them as like almost a vision board of like tangible things. I want to achieve this in this time frame. I think that's good. But I've never ever done it, more so purely because like if I always had the thought process, and it probably might not even be the right way of doing things, but I always have the thought process of like, if I apply myself as hard as I can in the right things and certain doors unlock as a result of that, the direction is going to find itself, if that makes sense.
Like a natural evolution.
Yeah. And that's when you're kind of like your end goal is just something that's constantly evolving. Because I think it almost might even be a risk. Because if you say, look, by the time I get to this point, that's like my 5 year goal. It's like, what happens after that?
Or if you don't reach it in 5 years, do you now start feeling like you're a failure? You're disappointed?
Yeah. So like, I think the goal setting is hugely important, but this is never something I did just more so purely because of you kind of see it happening in lifetime where it's like, oh, look, if I just get my head down and just focus on these things, more things come as a result of them.
Do you think it could maybe be like, it's just like almost that long-term goal becomes a distraction and it stops you being present with what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Cool. Yeah. So we're past the muscle mentors at this stage. RIP, rest in peace. But big guys, obviously, I mean, you're looking at it, Paul and James, they're doing the PT project, they're doing really well. I actually don't know what Luke's doing.
Luke is I think he's in Portugal. He's got a kid now as well.
There you go.
He had a child before me.
There you are.
Luke's in Portugal. Still to this day, the smartest man I think I've ever met.
Yeah, he was definitely a very, very, very intelligent human
being.
You
ever seen him eat fruit as well? There's probably a story for another podcast.
We'll save that for another time. So we're now in the pro coach era at this point. And that's been how long ago since that started?
2.5 years. This will be the third. By the end of this year, it'll be year 3.
So like 2022, I think.
I think it was November or December 2022, yeah.
Sweet, cool.
Yeah.
What are we looking at pro coach now? Like, what is for maybe the next? I know you don't want to set the potentially 3 to 5 year goals, but if we're looking ahead, even just to the next year or two, what's in your crosshairs now as far as?
So like the coaching side is good in terms of what we consistently want to deliver. at the level we want to deliver it at on stage, essentially. Like, continuing to back up what you say you can do is essentially the USP there. I think the longer term goal from a pro coach standpoint is that will never change, because like that's my arrowhead of anything that comes off the back of the brand is always built on the ability to get results, and is always built on. I've always thought and been of the mindset like I can teach you certain things and I can take you through a syllabus, but if that isn't built off its ability to actually work, there's no point. Because we both know you can teach people a lot of things and feel as though they're getting value that doesn't really lead to any tangible end goal, right? So it's always been that arrowhead of results, and I think the next couple of years now is going to be more so an exploration and doubling down into that education space, because this last year we've had the ICM launch, and the ICM is heavily physique coach orientated. So if you are a coach that specializes in, optimizing body composition, end-to-end transformations, or just general physique coaching, that's your bread and butter of virtually everything you need to know to master your craft, hence the Institute of Coaching Mastery, is within the syllabus that you can then go and absorb in however long it takes you to complete the course and do the assessments. But this big thing for me is differentiating that with the pro coach stuff, because as soon as you start to bring competitors involved, and as soon as you start to talk about drugs, it's a different ball game. Because and this is something that I've spoken about and discussed with the team heavily, if we merge them both together, the ICM becomes a PED platform, a forum for PEDs, because that side is always going to get a lot of traction just because of the fact that people just are always interested in finding these things and secret protocols, when in actuality it's none of that. But it's always clickable, there's always demand for it.
I suppose also because there's still a sort of taboo and stigma around PED use, so naturally people want to find a place where's a safe place I can go to ask people who actually know what they're doing, questions about dosage, side effects, long-term, planning this out, in-season, off-season, female use, etc., etc.
But it's like protecting the message and who you want to speak to with the ICM and doubling down on that. And then in October, 2 weeks after the Olympia, we'll launch the first platform for pro coach education, which will be being built at the moment, which will be everything that has been asked on a DM for the last 3 years about a course for that is in that course. And there'll be existing separately, but there'll be mergers to an extent. But what I teach on here is not going to be taught on the other one, and vice versa. And it needs to be separate, because I don't want to have someone coming in 2 years into their career trying to get results and seeing a tab on, drug escalation or blood work or something and thinking, oh, I just need to apply that to my clients, when it's a completely different world you're in at the moment. And as soon as you merge them, I think it's really risky, because you're not learning the foundation in the first place that actually gets you where you want to be. If you want to learn, if you want to work with that demographic, you've got to master the other one first, right?
I think this is the thing that a lot of people try to, 100%. Whether ethically or unethically, or even 100%. Just unbeknown to themselves, they're just, that must be the reason why these guys are getting these results. But I think you and I would both agree that ultimately your foundations are still built on everything that's non-enhanced, and often a lot of guys who are on like truckloads of gear or whatever else, guys or gals nowadays, often the stuff that you have to actually go and address is often the 100%. Non-PD stuff first anyway, right? So it's funny, I think, how we're seeing that play out, and we'll get into more of that when we get into some of the stuff you're seeing out there in the industry. So cool.
There's a lesson in that for sure. And I think, like we said before, the fast track to client base and results, etc. People don't necessarily see that other stuff as like sexy now, but like from what we've done ourselves, even as coaches, like the ability for you to work with a competitor now and the level you want to coach at has been built by working with everyone else first. And I can see that, the large majority, the people that will last in the game that I'm in now will be people that built their foundations on just knowing human physiology, understanding everything else, because then it's all about being a problem solver, right? The ability for you to understand that stuff, to understand physiology, to understand training, etc. You're a much more well-rounded problem solver than if you just went on a course and learned about PED use, because you're going to become unstuck very quickly when drugs then aren't the answer to certain things. And it's going to be 9 times out of 10, they're not the answer. It's the other stuff first. If you can get a result with 40-year-old Julie, who's trying to lose 5 stone and has the complexities of that and has adherence issues, mindset issues, she's going through menopause, she can't sleep, If you can solve that, then this is going to be a doddle, you know?
And you think that often happens sometimes, that people put to say that there aren't also complexities and a skill set that comes with physique coaching, especially
100%.
for contest prep, but almost that gets glorified as being harder or
for sure.
a higher level than the
100%.
Like, for me, at least, my mind goes to, if I get like a 45-year-old menopausal woman who's got X, Y, and Z going on, like sleep issues, maybe fractured relationships, high stress with work, that's way more complex than your photo shoot prep or your contest prep athlete.
Yeah,
but I think that often gets just completely overlooked.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I want to come back to something that you mentioned. I think it's interesting because it does come back full circle. There was the mistake that you wanted to avoid with the muscle mentors trying to be too many things or trying to be two things.
Yeah.
Of course, now we're coming back to a point where you would have almost potentially been in danger of going down the same route if you had not separated. So just maybe before we move into some of the ranty stuff about the physique coaching space and where we see things at the moment, what is it that you're going to do, or what sort of stuff are you putting in place to ensure that Pro Coach, even though there's an educational component to it, and ICM, what's going to help to keep that separate? I mean, maybe other than just the separation between the PEDs, I'm sure there's obviously other things that are very individual. What are the clear, distinct differences between those two spaces, platforms? You kind of see it as to, if you want to work with that demographic, you've got to earn the right to work with that demographic. Yeah. And anything in the nature of like flow of education, this is something that we spoke about before. The restructuring of both, because the ICM is relaunching very soon as well on a new platform as an expansion of the first. You can't access any of the further content unless you've done the base course, and Pro Coach will be the same. You can't access, if we release a specific module on the thyroid, or if we released a specific module on lipolytic use, or something female orientated, whatever it might be, a tangent, you've got to have done the base content first before you access that stuff. So I want you to have a really clear, firm understanding of everything and a foundational level before you deep dive into anything. Because it's the whole notion of like soundbite education, where it's like, I understand a snippet of that I can tell my clients, but in actuality, if I sat that client down in front of me and they asked me those questions, I wouldn't know how to answer them. And that's a big problem, because you can listen to a J3U podcast and hear John tell you about something, but you don't understand it like John Jewett does. And there's the difference. John is teaching that stuff and applying it in a real life setting because he's learned it in and out. And it's very easy to take a snippet in a sentence and tell your client that on a check-in and say, oh, this is going to look really... And not only that, it's easy to then go and record your own content and make it sound like you know what you're talking about as well.
Which does I can guarantee you, as soon as you do a first in-person event and somebody puts their hand up and they're like, oh, so what about this? And then you're like, not quite sure about that.
Or not as confident as you thought you were.
100%. But yeah, they're differentiated for that very reason. You need to protect this style of coach in their point of their career and this style of coach in their point of their career. There'll be a carryover to both, because there will be a carryover to, just like I was in that camp to start with for the first 6 years of my career, and then I moved to this one. But it needs to be specific over outcomes, and both of them will be very outcome orientated in terms of the content that's going in will be the stuff that I want you to listen to a module or do an assessment at the end of a module and be able to open up your next check-in and instantly be able to apply things to that client that's in front of you. Or to go into your PT job the next day and your first 6 clients of the week on a Monday morning, it's like, oh, I understand that now and I can tell them the reason why, or I can start applying that in my programming. And everything we do is, if it's going to be in the course, it's going to be stuff that I want you to know that I know you can apply. Because it's very easy to just put filler content in, where it's like, the red flag for me is like the slide analogy. Back then, 5 years ago, if I was teaching, if I had a presentation deck with 150 slides in, I'd be like, this is so good. Yeah. And now it's like, if I can do that in 15 slides, I prefer to do it in 15.
I've nailed it.
Yeah. Because if it takes 150 slides to get a point across, I know the first 10 slides they'll absorb it. The last 140 will go through one ear and out the other.
Switch off.
And that's the difference. It's like, if you can make your point of application, take it, absorb it, and apply it, you're onto a winner.
You actually took the words out of my mouth, because I was actually going to get onto that question, is that almost it's many educators, especially when they're at the start, and I know when I started teaching, I almost felt this need to share as much of what I know as possible.
Yeah.
But the problem is with that is that only really strokes your ego, because it's like, well, hey, look at how intelligent and smart I am, and look at all the stuff I know. But it's like you said, it's like, well, how does that actually apply, and what tangible results does that actually get? So yeah, like for me, I would be the same. If I looked at a presentation, someone's like, right, we're going to go through this lesson on the thyroid, and it was 100 slides, I'd be like, bloody hell, I don't know if I want to sit through this.
Yeah.
But if it's like 5 slides and I'm going to get the person educating and really being present and also being thoughtful about things, that's far more engaging for sure. So I guess this is the goal with both ICM and the Pro Coach Education, is to make sure that there's just not that filler content. It's just, here's what you need to know.
100%.
And show us you can go and apply it.
Yeah.
Come back to us and actually show us that you can do this and that you have done it. And we want to hear about you applying this as well.
Because that ultimately is the social proof from an education standpoint. You don't have results, because once the coaches learned it, they're working in their own businesses. They're not, the end goal is not being delivered for you, it's being delivered for them.
Yeah.
But if I know that coaches can go and apply that and get their first high quality transformations at a photo shoot, or they can go and get their first class win on stage, or their first overall win, or their first pro card, like that, for us, that's our social proof, because we're creating competent coaches, and with competency comes confidence. And if you can get those two things, like that's your ability to make an impact, isn't it?
Yep.
Like the end goal from an education standpoint for both sides is like awareness, being able to learn it, being able to apply it, and being able to get results. And it's like, if you can build confidence through like competence in coaching, then that's ultimately the end goal.
And I think that's where probably the altruism from your side and the rest of the team comes from, is it's actually seeing that people becoming successful, and it's your way of paying it forward, because you went through all these years paying God knows how much for your own education and putting in the groundwork. And it's quite a nice feeling to be able to pay that forward and see that successfully paid forward as well.
Yeah. It's like that. The biggest thing for me is this is something Matt said. Matt said when we were in Ibiza last weekend, the OC was a very good event. Really impressed with what they're doing. He said at the start of your career, it's impact over income, and at the end of your career, or the last chapter, or the last 10 years, it's impact over income. Because you're always going to go through a period of time where it's like money orientated. I need to scale this to a point where it's like, what lifestyle do I want to live, or what do I want to be able to retire on, or what do I want to put away while I can, whilst, make bread whilst the oven's hot type thing. But once you go through that journey, and I've had conversations about this with you in the past, the monetary side and the financial side of business and coaching, like I don't get a buzz off that anymore. Like I don't like talking about it, because it makes me focus on things that I know don't necessarily matter in the first place, and it leads me down tangents that I know don't lead to good things. Whereas when we focus on impact, and when we focus on coaches coming in a weekend of education, or coaches going through the course, and like you have that coach in front of you and you see the influence you've had on their trajectory as a coach, or the influence you've had on their career, or their ability to provide to their family, or their ability to grow and scale the business, like that level of fulfillment is going to give you way more than almost your own stuff in the first place. Because it's just normal after that point. You're not going to get a dopamine rush or a sense of fulfillment from hitting business targets. Once you've done it for 15 years, it's just like, all right, what do we need to do now? Or where are we at? Okay, crack on. You build a strategy and you just get on with it. Yeah. But if you can get that sense of impact from other people, and like little things like if we're coaching clients on stage now and I have a client turn pro, or Tyler qualified for the Olympia last weekend in Thailand after 28 pro shows, and like I've been around the world with him and come off second placings and come off third placings and gone and got judges feedback and had to travel home and pick yourself up and dust off and go again, and one day let's keep working at it. Like that moment when that penny finally drops is a better feeling than anything else. And like the more I coach now and the longer I've been in this industry, like that is the stuff that I crave now, because it gives me the most sense of fulfillment and purpose. Because the other stuff is just, it is what it is. I don't care. Like as long as I can provide for Han and Ronnie, and I can be the husband I want to be now, and I can be the son I want to be and the brother I want to be, and through periods of time in the last 5 years, like maybe I haven't been that because I was so business orientated and so business focused and so like just work like a dog on, I want to achieve these things, I want to hit this per month, I want to do this per year. But I don't like the person that's like that. If I take myself back and from an abstract perspective, like that's not Calum who's good in my relationship with my wife. That leads me down tangents that for face value, it's exciting, but it doesn't lead to good things long term. It doesn't lead to fulfillment. And the other stuff is what like I really crave now. So like when we look at education, Like if we can have someone that comes in and absorbs that, and like Gabriel, a guy called Gabriel Moreno from Switzerland, he messaged me about 2 months ago when his client turned pro, and I remember, so I coached Gabriel for like 3 or 4 years as a competitor, and now he's a full-time coach. So he always wanted to say like, I want to do what you do. I want to coach clients at a high level. I want to coach people to turn pro, coach people for the Olympia. And I remember I was with him in Alicante like 2 or 3 years ago when we were all at a show weekend, and it was probably one of his first clients on stage in Spain. This was 3 years ago. And the client that turned pro was with him. We were outside this ice cream shop, and he was like talking about planning his next phase together. And I think he'd just come second or third at this show, and they're like, right, what we want to do in future. And I knew where his personal goals were. And he sent me a message about 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, I want to thank you for like all the stuff that you did for me and what I learned from you and the value I took and the direction I took from that and the clarity I took from that. And it was a screenshot of him in Alicante, and his client had won the overall and turned pro, the same guy we're outside the ice cream shop with. Huh. And like that stuff, you don't realize when you're doing it. Because when you're coaching, it's just, I've got this amount of check-ins to do. I've got to reply to these people. I've got to do your job, right? Yeah. You don't realize the impact you have. And then when you see messages like that, you're like, oh, fucking hell. This goes a lot deeper than what you think it does, you know? Mm. And the longer you do it, the deeper it goes. So that was a tangent, but yeah.
But I guess a lot of, especially younger coaches, they might look up to someone like you and they may think, well, it's easy for you to say that it's not about the finances when you're doing so well. But the thing is you probably like it. It's almost like it's exciting, the idea of it, until you get there and you realize, well, what's the cost of success that comes with that as well? And then all the things you've had to sacrifice to get there. And 100%. I think if you had to really press people, a lot of individuals who like the idea of potentially what you had to go through and the success you've had, would many of them be willing to sacrifice the things you've had to do? Probably not. No. So I think it's really nice that you're sort of being very open about that, and that this wasn't something that was cost free. It came with 100%. many sacrifices 100%. Along the way as well. Yeah. To even to the point, like you said, where you were questioning whether you're being a good husband, whether you're being a good brother.
Every year for the last 10 years.
So there you go. And so I think now with the birth of Ronnie as well, though, that probably even puts that even more shift. Into perspective as well. Yeah, gives
me more purpose because there's more responsibility, but it also makes me realize the tendencies that I had before. I can't let that happen again because there's a lot more running on it now. There's a lot more weight on your shoulders.
Stakes are higher now.
Stakes are higher, Like, I don't know. Have you ever spoken to Oscar before? Oscar Young 4040 on Instagram.
Oh yeah. Oscar. I've never met him.
So Manchester, he's a FLF, but Oscar's one of my oldest, closest friends.
He's a bit of an industry legend.
The godfather of Ronnie, and he's the only one that's pulled me up on it multiple times in the past because he's close to Hannah as well. He lived with us for like a year in Manchester, but one of my closest friends, and probably 2 or 3 times in the last. I've known Oscar for must have been since 2017, so how many years that is, 7 or 8 years. And he watches from a distance, and you don't think he's tuning in, but he watches from a distance. And he'll ring me out of the blue and he'll be like, I'm really disappointed in you. Or he'll ring me and say like, we need to have a chat. And he'll pull me up on everything and he'll call all my shit out. And that's happened multiple times in the past. And it's not even, I'm like, what do you mean? And he's just observed months and months and months. And he might have had the odd text from Hannah, or he might have been aware of what was going on, or me traveling, or me, certain things. And he's been the one that's called me out. And then you sit there and you're like, oh, fucking hell.
He's not wrong.
Didn't realize. And then it's like, it's a shift of perspective. And I think that's been helpful for me as well, because if you don't get told, it becomes the norm, and that's a risk.
That's a good friend right there, because the thing is, there'll be so many people 100%. That will just glorify the hustle versus, hey, you actually need to take a step back from it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Oscar's a top man.
Top man, mate. Very unique person to know.
Hopefully I'll get to meet him at some point as well.
100%.
I want to, towards the end of this podcast now, because we haven't had a chance to really get into the topical stuff, although the stuff up to this point has been very interesting to dive into, even stuff that I don't think we've ever even spoke about before as well, despite knowing each other for so long, is if you look at the physique space, whether you want to look at just the physique space in general, or whether we're looking more narrowly at bodybuilding, physique coaching within that realm. I want to sort of almost address this to you in 2 parts. And the first part will go on the more ranty side. What are the things that you're seeing currently within the bodybuilding coaching space that it doesn't sit right with you, either in terms of ethics, in terms of approach, trends you're seeing, and then of course, to finish off that, it'd be good to end on a positive, which will be, what are the things you're really excited about and loving about the bodybuilding space at the moment?
I think the bodybuilding side is, it will bring the best, but also probably more so the worst out of people as well, because there's a lot of, it's very easy to get a few results on stage, maybe with people that were born to win in the first place, where you don't really have to have that much value in the coaching process. And you can plaster that on social media and you can generate a lot of conversions and sales and, you know, new clients from. But once that business is there, you've got to back up what you sold them in the first place and deliver it with them. That's where there's a risk there, not only just in terms of like the level of input you have with that individual's health long term, but more so just them spinning their wheels because you don't have an understanding or a level of application that's going to get them to their end goal. I think and this goes really around like full circle for all demographics of coaching, whether you're doing first shoot transformations, whether you're doing people on stage, whether you're doing, you know, whatever. And this is something I spoke about in Ibiza the other day. It's the business side, it's got to be important, but it's always going to be 100% coaching as well, you know? So if you've got we've come from a time where, you know, this makes us sound really old, but we are quite old. But in
me more so than you. You can see the greys coming through my beard now.
Mate, I'm going to shave it off sometimes. We've come from a time where when you entered the industry, you obsessed about coaching. You obsessed about results. Hopefully you did. People that are sat at, you know, where we are now, if we've lasted this long in the industry and we've built something that's going to last, you had to have those obsessions at the start, right?
For sure.
You know, you had to, because there's the amount of people that we've seen come and go, even in the time that we've coached. It's very easy to come in and get spit out the other side, right?
Yeah, it's easy to come in and be flavour of the month, especially 100%. With the way social media is. You can go viral, be so popular, and then you've seen this, people just disappear. 100%. Never hear from them again.
But you have a new coach into the industry now with what you're consuming on social media, with what is getting the likes, the shares, hitting the emotional button that you need to hit to get people bought in. If I gave you £1,000 in front of you and I said, right, you've got a course that's going to take you 12 months, but everything you need to know in that course, once you've done the 12 months and you've applied yourself 100%, you're going to be able to get out the other side and you're going to be able to work with clients competently, with confidence, and execute high-level results and get good social proof. But it's going to take you a year of grafting your bollocks off and learning the ins and outs of what you need to know. You've got another course that's £1,000 up front that's going to promise you your first 10K month in the first 3 months through those tactics of DMs and emails and social media posts, whatever it might be. Where is the coach going to go? They're going to go to the business mentor.
Grand majority of coaches at the moment.
99% of the time. And what happens to the 99% of people that after 3 months, they then can't do what they said they'd do. So they dip to the next business mentor that tells them something else. Then they go over here and do something else. And 2 years down the line, they're no better off and they've spent 50 grand on business mentors that have achieved nothing with them.
Yeah.
Okay. And the best mentors that I know, you're working with one of them at the moment. Ben is exceptional. I know there are a lot of people in this industry that do it right. The difference is those people have been coaches for a long, long period of time.
Yeah.
They value what actually matters in the first place. They'll teach you the stuff and how to do this and that and put yourself out there, you know. And a lot of it's really simple. A lot of it you just need to have someone telling you to do it in the first place. But the backbone is your ability to be an exceptional coach. And the backbone there is something that is being lost more and more because of what's, you know, it's smoke and mirrors, you know.
Big time.
You can sell someone a dream, but if you don't have the substance to actually back it up, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And when we entered the industry, further education was like CPD, RTS, muscle nerds.
Travel to seminars.
Travel across the world to seminars and spend all the money you had reinvesting in your business.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 or 3 years of coaching, I don't think I made any profit. I was like, I could pay my rent and buy myself food. I don't think I earned any money. I just paid for it all on travel and courses.
And I think the word you said earlier was you were obsessed about being able to do that as well. You were just like, whatever I need to do to get
100%.
enough money. I had 2 part-time jobs at the same time as doing my PT at the start to make sure I could fund courses and all that stuff.
But I think for the majority of coaches in the industry now, they would never do that because they're here for quick scaling, profitability, and you know, maybe that's to earn the kind of lifestyle they want to live, or maybe it's to earn the lifestyle they want to put out on social media. But that is never going to lead to anything that lasts long and gives you fulfillment. It's not a career. It's not a business you're building. It's just to scale quick and crash hard. And I think if you can balance both, you need to learn the business stuff. You need to know it 100%. But unless you're obsessed about the coaching side, you will not last. Because there'll be people in the industry that will, And they'll be the people that are sat here in 10 years' time. And you'll be the person that's churned through 4 people selling you a dream. And 2 or 3 years later, you're looking for another industry or another job because it's not worked out.
Yeah.
But you could have done that at the start. But it's much harder to do that than being sold the dream in the first place.
Yeah. So funny we're having this conversation though, because I've literally had maybe 3 or 4 people in the last, I would say 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And they've reached out initially with the interest on, I respect you as a coach and what you do with the education, and I would like to be coached, but also learn from someone. It's okay, great. And then a couple of weeks later, like, I've decided to go and start with the business mentor. That happens so often because they see the I need to get good at the business stuff. But then when I look, there may be a coach that's been in the industry 1, 2, maybe 3 years if you're lucky. They don't have the base of the skill set yet. And in my head, I'm just thinking, well, you can polish a turd, but still a turd.
100%.
You're not going to be able to sell a shit product if it's shit. 100%. So get your product to a great place first. It takes care of itself. In fact, I would say that we were never even considering the idea of business mentors for the first 5-7 years.
It took me 10 years.
Yeah, same.
10 years.
I've been, 14 years now? And I wasn't even looking at business mentoring until 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
I was just focused on, let's just actually get good at what you do first, and then that will sell.
I remember the first call I had with Ben this was probably a couple of years ago. And he was like, just saying all these words. And he was like, show me a CRM, show me a... And I was like, what's a CRM? And he was like, what do you mean, what's a CRM? He was like, how do you handle inquiries? I'm like, just on my Instagram.
Is that an OPD that's out?
I literally had no idea what anything he was talking about. There's nothing.
Now, this guy's speaking Chinese to me.
I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. We don't do emails. We've never done a paid ad. We've never done this. We've never done that. And we still haven't now, but we do have a CRM. We've got, the back end system for making things work is efficient. But I almost think you've got to earn the right to even be in a position where that becomes important.
For sure. Yeah.
If you've got 10 clients, you don't need that. You need to get results with 10 clients first. It
just becomes a distraction otherwise.
It's just a distraction where it's like you could spend a year trying to implement those things. But at no point have you actually moved the needle forwards with being a better coach who can apply what needs to be applied to get better quality clients and get better quality results. And if the social proof isn't there, nothing will scale.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times I've had consults with people that have come in with certain problems, or it might be blood work orientated, or it might be can't get a result with X. So they'll bring me a case study, they'll pay for an hour or half an hour, whatever it might be. I see who the person is. So I'll see their Instagram handle, I'll see their name, I'll see what the information about what we're talking about on the call is. And sometimes I'll click on, let's go and just look at them on Instagram and see what's going on. And they might have 300,000 followers. They've got 1,000 transformations. They've got click now for my bio. They've all these things. And it's like, fucking hell, this is legit, okay? This guy's smart. And then they'll go on a call and they'll be completely clueless. Completely clueless. And, that's the kind of coach that, whether they pay for the followers or not, is probably another question, but, they have a very good ability to cast a net over what they're doing on social media and generate a lot of leads and conversions from. And they're probably charging a price point where those conversions are a little bit easier than if it was a high price point. But they've also got extremely high churn because there's a reason they're booking a call with me, because they can't get a result, If they're going through 6 clients where it's like, I'm not sure what to do in this situation, what would you do in this situation? If I was not there, those 6 clients have gone next month, And that's just constantly reoccurring. It's like one thing that this is something that the paradigm shift even with the muscle mentors 2 years ago. You don't have the right to think about lead generation and more clients until you can keep the clients you've got.
Yeah.
Until you can minimize your client churn so every client lasts, say 1 to 2 years, for example, is a lifespan. It's a lot of work in 1 to 2 years. And something I say a lot of these education events will be long term, I want to get to a point where a client leaves me because I've given them everything I need to give them and they're almost self-sufficient. Competitors, it's a little bit different because they want to get different approaches and they want to learn new methodologies and have new eyes, etc. But if it's, for example, a client that comes in with no experience and they want to do a transformation and you say you coach them for 2 years, for example, and you take them through a full lifespan of a client. They have fat loss phases, they have muscle building phases, they learn the ins and outs of being adept over nutritional management, they understand recovery, they understand sleep. You've given them the whole toolbox in that 2 years. If that client then turns around to you and says, look, Ross, it's been incredible, but I think I can do it on my own. That for you is the greatest achievement as a coach. And it's also the same client that will have told 10 of their mates that have already probably signed up with you as well, that then tell 10 more people that have probably already signed up with you as well. And it's also someone that in 5 years' time, if they think, oh, I want to get ready for this holiday, I want to get in really good shape in 5 years' time, who's the first person they think about? Oh, it's Ross, you know? And if we can have that mindset, like, you don't need 100 inquiries. You need 10.
Yeah.
And then if you get results with 10 people, right, there's another 10 through the door, you know? But the thing that's been shoved down your throat now is as many leads as possible, Instagram reach as hard as you can, you know? Even the social media things is not even actuality, because you could have a post that reaches 10,000 people, but if they're consuming the content because of the picture or because of the size of someone's glutes or because of how impressive the lift is, it's 10,000 people that are never going to be interested in buying anything off you.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather have a coach get 10 likes from 10 people that are actually wanting to engage and have conversation than 1,000 likes for people that won't even blink an eye. They like it and they go, you know?
It's almost that quality over quantity actually has something to it.
100%. And that's
we're in that last couple of minutes now, so I just want to, and what we can talk about off there, we can do some of the stuff that you've got going on, and maybe even just get on a next Zoom call together, and we can just record a little short video on where people can find you and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's fine.
The last thing I wanted to finish on with the positive side of things, what within the bodybuilding physique space are you really excited about and you're really enjoying seeing at the moment?
I think there is generally a much bigger shift towards people wanting to operate at a higher standard. What we've just spoken about then, I think there is a paradigm shift across it, probably because people are going through those processes of feeling as though, if I focus on that, I still don't feel like I'm moving forwards. And then they start focusing on the coaching practice side. And then things start to shift. And they probably have more job fulfillment because they can actually deliver at a higher level as well, you know? Even from what we've seen with the ICM and 100% what we've seen through Pro Coach, there is a much higher percentage of people coming through the door or people just interacting with us that are just eager on being better in the first place. And I think if we can continue in that trajectory, that industry standard, which is, you know, what we've spoken about for years and years and years, the whole mission statement of the Muscle Mentors 6 years ago was to raise industry standards. And, you know, that is something that will come and go in phases. But I think the more that we can get excited around differentiating yourself by being an exceptional coach, not having the best landing page, because the landing page can come. But until you've got 100 clients, you don't need a landing page.
Until you've actually got results to put on the landing page, maybe don't have a landing page.
Exactly. That's the nail in the head, right? It's the more you can focus on the other stuff, it will almost happen by default. It's going to be a byproduct of everything else. But if you just focus on that side, the other stuff will never happen, you know? And I think that now, probably the last two or so years, maybe because more of it's more easily accessible online, post-COVID, probably less people traveling or during that period of time. And it's like, right, more online courses, more info courses online. It's very accessible and for a good price as well for the value you get. It's like, there's never an excuse to not be furthering your learning. The only thing I'd say on that is it's great that you're eager, but just make sure you're spending time and investing in things that are going to give you direct applicability back to who you actually want to work with and specialize in and get results with. Because it's very easy to spend a lot of money on things that you'll finish and you won't actually use and apply within the demographic you're in the first place. That makes sense?
100%. So I think that's a great nugget of information and knowledge to finish on. And I think key takeaway there is there's so much that can distract you in this industry. But just by getting the head down, putting in your time, earning your dues, and actually becoming good at your job and learning how to solve problems, 100%. If you can do that, that's going to be your best marketing tool.
100%.
Cal, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Fitness Rants podcast. If today's guest episode resonated with you, be sure to hit subscribe on either YouTube or your preferred podcast platform so you never miss our expert interviews.
And if you want to connect with today's guest, all the details are linked in the episode description. Thank you for tuning in. We're looking forward to having you back for the next episode.